Today we're going to talk about this thing here, the Fuji X-Pro3, which may surprise some of you considering that I don't usually care about these throwback rangefinder style cameras, or really vintage aesthetic in general, and also considering this camera definitely places its primacy on photography. But after using it for a while, I recorded 7 things about this camera that impressed me that I wanted to tell you about. Let's get undone. Gerald Undone. He's crazy. What's happening, everybody? I'm Gerald Undone, and I fought the Raw, and the Raw won. So it's autumn here in Canada, there's colorful leaves everywhere, and I've got a camera loaded with Fuji's terrific film emulations, so let's go take some pictures and count down this list. And in fact, let's make those film emulations number 1 on the list, because I really like what Fuji's done to expand upon their already terrific processing, and as someone who's a big fan of film emulation, I really like seeing the extra steps that they've done to give you more features in the menu, as well as adding the classic neg and mono CL emulation. You also now have the option for color chrome FX blue, which you can adjust to either strong or weak, as well as now a clarity slider, which is pretty great. So for all the images that we're shooting today, we're going to do straight out of camera JPEG so that you can see some of the looks that you can get with this camera. And sticking with film emulation, my number 2 thing that I think is cool about the X-Pro3 is this little sub monitor on the back. It doesn't show you the regular things that an LCD screen would, which I think encourages you to use the viewfinder more, chimp less, and get more into taking photos. And what's great is that you can actually set it up like I have now to show the sort of preview window of the film stock that you're using, so it obviously kind of looks like a film camera. And in there you can also get your ISO setting and your white balance. And I think this is just a really great feature overall and sort of ties in with Fuji's film emulation. But if you need it, there still is a full LCD hidden under here that you can just fold down like that, which you can use for multiple viewing angles. And it's one of the modern Fuji high-resolution screens. It's touch capable. It's great, no issues with it whatsoever. But I think this camera definitely does encourage you to use the viewfinder, which is one of the best in the business. And it's actually a combo viewfinder. There's a hybrid optical viewfinder, which you can use just like you would with a film camera. But then there's also an electronic viewfinder in there. The optical viewfinder is fun, but I still prefer the electronic viewfinder. Now moving away from older concepts like optical viewfinders and film stocks, let's talk about something modern for number 3, which is Fuji's best autofocus system to date. Not only can the X-Pro3 fire off 11 frames per second with mechanical shutter, but you'll get a high keeper rate thanks to very fast AF, reliable face and eye detection, and this new setting that allows you to set a range limit to the autofocus in the menu of the camera instead of that function being restricted to specific lenses. And you still have familiar features like the case settings for autofocus, which you can fine-tune, as well as linear focusing for manual focus, so you don't have to worry about that focus by wire stuff. It's not the fastest autofocusing system when it comes to sports or intense action, but it's very capable and more than enough for the type of shooting this camera's made for. Speaking of drive speed, my number 4 item is the menu screen for shutter type. Fuji definitely wins the prize for most useful and informative shutter selection screen I've ever seen. Not only does it explain what each setting means and its ideal purpose, but it also lists the shutter speed limitations of each mode and the crossover point for the hybrid modes. So you'll know at which shutter speed you switch from the mechanical shutter to the electronic one, and in the case of the electronic front curtain, it actually tells you that you'll get better image quality when below 1/2000th of a second. So people can hopefully stop being surprised and complaining in the forums when they get worse results at fast speeds using those modes. Number 5 is the shutter button. And I've had some issues with some of the Fuji cameras in the past having responsiveness of a shutter button that I don't really like. Either they were way too sensitive or the throw was too long and they gave squishy feedback. But the shutter on the X-Pro3 is tuned very nicely and it has a lower release lag than the previous models. Okay, so number 6 is the video functionality. Now make no mistake, this is definitely a stills camera, but what I like about it is that you're not exactly limited when it comes to video. Now I wouldn't recommend buying this camera if you need a dedicated video camera because there are some limitations like a 15-minute record limit in 4K, there's no HDMI port, and there's no standard microphone or headphone jacks. But if you're a photographer mainly who just would occasionally like to record some high quality video clips, then you're not missing out by getting this camera. Because you can record up to 15-minute clips in 4K, and you have access to all the same film emulations like Eterna and even F-Log. It has reliable eye and face detection in video, focus peaking, a tally light, zebras, and even a dedicated mode for video so you can separate your settings. In fact, I even go as far as to say that it has better video options than some of the hybrid cameras from competitors. I hate that I have to say this, but it can record 24 frames per second in 1080p 1080p and 4K. In 4K, the highest you can go is 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second in 1080p, but it does have a dedicated 120 frames per second in-camera slow motion mode for 1080p that you can record with autofocus. And you can do all this at 200 megabits per second. The only thing really holding it back is, like I said, the ports and ergonomics and the 4K recording limit. But this is great add-on capability for a mostly still shooter. Lastly, number 7, I love the new finishes and the new build materials. There's 3 trims for the X-Pro3. You've got the standard black, and then the Duratect black and Duratect silver. And all of them come with a new titanium top and bottom plate instead of just a regular magnesium body for added structural integrity without increasing the weight. Now, the Duratect silver and black do come at a price premium, but they're scratch resistant. In fact, one of the first things that I did was take a blade to it. I have the silver Duratect version here, and it really is scratch resistant. I was digging the blade in pretty hard, and no matter how hard I tried, the scuffs just wiped away with just my finger. Pretty cool stuff. So those are the things that impressed me the most about this camera. Now, I didn't give you a spec rundown because you can easily just read that, but I should mention that this camera now has an upgraded sensor over the previous version using the X-Trans version 4, which is going to up your resolution to 26 megapixels, and it's also going to improve your lower ISO range. You can go down to ISO 160 now natively, down from the ISO 200 on the previous models, and then up to ISO 12800. And the battery life is improved over the previous model as well, with a rating of 370 shots over the X-Pro2's 280 shots, but it's still using the same 126 battery, which you can find in the XT series and the E series. That battery is a tough one for me though. I don't really like the Fuji batteries. I wish that they were bigger and better. I can kind of appreciate how keeping the battery congruent with all the different cameras does make it easier for camera upgrade path, and if you already own one of the previous models, well, now you can carry your batteries over, and that's great. But unfortunately, that also means that the weakest link in these cameras, like with the X-T3 for example, is usually the battery. That being said though, this camera, along with the other recent Fuji releases, does allow for USB charging and active powering via the USB-C port as long as it's connected to a power delivery charger, which I appreciate. Anyway, that's pretty much it. I think this camera offers a lot for its price tag. It's coming in at $1,800 or $2,000 depending on the finish that you choose, and I think for a photographer looking for this style of camera, that's a pretty good deal, especially when you consider the price of the other Leica M rangefinder style cameras in this space. I think the Fuji X-Pro3 is offering you everything that you could get elsewhere, but in a more durable body with more useful screens and features and richer video capabilities, and at a lower price. So if this is the style of camera for you, then this is the camera for you. But that's going to be it for me. I hope you found this video entertaining, or at least helpful, and if you did, make sure to leave it the old thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. But if you did not find this video helpful or entertaining, well then you must like scratches on your camera. Alright, I'm done.